We've been having an exciting time here on the takeover, and I can't think of anybody who is a showstopper that could really close these 4 days. And, you know, it's kind of serendipitous how this all happened. That we did all the Caribbean and North American musics, if you will. And we talked to impresarios. Then we got that meal from Dr. Dorothy Williams. And now we go back to jazz because Ranee Lee, the incomparable Ranee Lee, who is also a professor here of the Schulich School of Music. And I have to say this, my big sister, because I can't stop saying it enough. She is a descent of Jamaican heritage. So I welcome you to Boom Boom Time, and this too is also a first for me and you. We've done so many things over the years, but I've never interviewed you on radio. Welcome to the takeover. In studio with me is Donna McCurvin and Phil Vassell from the Canadian Black Music Archives, and the past 4 days we've been talking about the Black Montreal music sound through its artists and impresarios and promoters and DJs. Welcome, Ranee.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for the invitation, my dear sister.
Ranee, remind me, what year did you come to Montreal and why Montreal?
Well, I had been coming to Montreal since the late 60s to perform, but the last time when I came to perform, I think it was either 69 or 70, I was in a group, I was put with a group of excellent musicians, because we have nothing else but, that included a guitarist that became one of my best friends, and later the strings of my heart, whom I married, and then and it was Richard Ring, and we decided that I would make my home here. I'd had a previous marriage that dissolved very early, and I brought my 3 kids here from New York, and, we never looked back.
And what year was that?
I came in 70, and my kids came up in 71, and now we're all Canadian citizens, and our home is in Quebec.
Now, when you came to Montreal, you already had a music career. What was playing in and around Montreal? What clubs were you going to? Who were some of the people that you were playing with? Describe I'm 10 seconds younger than you. So I wasn't there. So give us a sense of the time.
It was just after that wide open period that I missed. That was, Rockheads and all of the things that happened. But I came on the cusp of the ending of that, and so the Esquire Show Bar was still a bit alive. I came as a sort of Broadway show type of thing, because I was also playing instruments and dancing, and I was like a Jill of all trades. So I was immediately booked into clubs like Le Cafon and the Queen Elizabeth. So I didn't have much of a jazz background at that point, although jazz is a 4-letter word. We can make a jazz arrangement from a canon, from a religious canon or a folk song, and it has a lot of connotation. But one of the big influences when I arrived here was Charlie Biddles. Mm-hmm. And Nelson Simon, and names that are synonymous with great music and the freedom of expression when I had arrived. So there was still a bit of freedom as far as less closure to the style of music, and things were still pretty wide open. But a lot of clubs that were open and varying styles of music. The Playboy Club was open and bringing in acts from the States, as like Tony Bennett. And like I said, I was at the CAFCON and or the Bonaventure Hotel, I forget the name of that right now, and it had the big room, and they were bringing in big acts from the States and Europe. It was very sort of open style. It was still a feeling of bon vivant. That sort of music was the lifeline to everything. And I really did have a great introduction to music through people like I said, Charlie and Richard, of course, and Oliver. Oliver was here, and then he left for a long period of time to play in Puerto Rico and other places, I think. And then when he came back, it was still pretty much alive and moving, but some of the clubs had diminished.
Now, one of the things I learned from interviewing, doing a pre-interview with Howard Stretch Carr, who also played as a solo act at the Playboy Club and at La Siesta and at the Edgewater, was that in those days, this thing that we have now, where a DJ plays all night, didn't really exist then. This very much was a live music town.
Right.
And you know, Kat Dyson talks about that, just all the bands that existed and
lots of work. Yeah,
lots
clubs
of work.
Open. Yeah. In fact, I think I played all of them at one point, and you know, and the musicians were working, and it was like open to, 3:00 in the morning, people were just pouring out of the clubs to go to rest Dunn's to get something to eat, and it was a wonderful freedom type place at that time.
You said that. Sorry, my name is Phil.
Hi, Phil.
How are you?
I'm good.
I know you've done several recordings that I've been able to collect in Toronto. How many albums would you say that you've done over the years?
I think I have 12, maybe 13 at this point. I would say 13 recordings of long play CDs.
Right. And I know it's crazy to ask which is your favorite, because I'll go collecting some more. I only have a couple.
Okay. That's like asking which of my kids are my favorite, right?
I know. And parents do, but they don't want to tell the truth.
That's one that we keep closely under wraps.
Yeah, there's always one that gets on your last nerve, but they don't want to admit it.
Every recording held a different reason to do it. It was, what was the meaning of that particular recording at that time. I did a recording live on Broadway, which was a really fun and very intricate recording, because we tried to bring the jazz flavor to Broadway plays like Cats and Phantom of the Opera. I think we succeeded. I don't think it was well accepted from the Broadway clan of people who enjoy Broadway and the straight ahead, type of music, but it was something that was different. If I had to say on a Monday that the Deep Song album was one of my favorites. In fact, it was the first recording I think I did with Just in Time Records. And I was hot off of the circuit of doing Lady Day at Emerson's Bar and Grill, so my chops were in place, and and the music was mine, and I didn't have to learn or relearn something, because I had lived doing the play for so long. And it's really very difficult to say. I mean, even my newer recordings, like I did, it's not an homage, but it's a recording of tunes that Celine Dion made very, very popular. I admire her greatly, but I really, really did try to stay away from her type of arrangement. First of all, I don't have the range that she has, and I tried to bring a more jazz connotation. And I discovered Snarky Puppy some time ago, whom I love them, and when I asked Torrey Butler, who's our pianist and a giant in his own right musically, to arrange that style for me for those two. So I feel we stepped over another line in that instance. So that was fun. And then, of course, there's the recording live at Ranee Lee lives upstairs, because upstairs Jazz Club is one of my home away from home places to play. So it really is it really is difficult. I have a couple of big bands. I think one big band, a nonette, I forgot what it's called now because the catalog's not in front of me, but it was really good, wonderful musicians, all from Montreal, and arranged and conducted by Dave McMurdo from Toronto. So it depends on what day it is.
So I wanted to ask you, because you just referenced Lady Day Emerson Bar and Grill, and I know you did that here, and I was privileged to catch the Toronto production. Musical theater. Tell me about musical theater in Montreal, because it seemed in the 80s that there were a lot more of it.
Sure was, yeah.
But it seemed like that made such a blip on the landscape, and then it died.
Yeah, because I don't know if it's a case where, it's always a case of finances and how big the club or the theater is and what the public is demanding. There are so many columns to why things recess and emerge, musical theater. Well, theater in general for me is one of my tentacles that I feel I exist to do. And when I was given the opportunity, I played it in Toronto, like you saw it, and I hope that we met when we were there, because that was a little minute ago, but I was there for 2 years almost doing that play, and we had done it. We initially did it here through Roger Peace, who was he was phenomenal. He had such an insight to what the public would like to see. And I had done Nonsense 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all of the Nonsense, Ain't Misbehaving, all kinds of plays for him. And he presented me to do Lady Day at Emerson's Bar and Grill. And that was a heavy undertaking, because if the play is an hour and 30 minutes, I was inebriated or whatever the substance that Billy was on at that time. And so, I had to sort of maintain a certain mental state to bring her character back to life. So, yeah, I don't know. There's some musical theater, but everything has taken a recession. Life has taken a recession to so many things recently. And we can only pray for, the resurgence of everything, because the talent still exists in this city.
Well, you know what they used to say in church, right? The night may be long, but joy comes in the morning.
That's right. Right.
Now, when did you make the transition to jazz? Because I've always known you through a jazz lens, and ashamed to tell you this, my big sister, I so have you now as a painter that sometimes I forget that, oh yeah, that's right, she's a jazz singer and an actress too. Right? But when did you transition into jazz?
It wasn't really difficult to transition, because I am still a major fan of I'm going to say her name in a second. Well, Sarah Vaughan and Ella and all of those people, although the music at my time was, the top 40. And in order to work the circuit in the States and in Ontario for the most part, I had to, go to that style of music. But Nancy Wilson is the name I was trying to sort of remind myself of. She was a goddess, and she still remains a goddess. There's so many people who emulate Ella and Sarah and do a really, really good job. But I have never heard anybody come close to Nancy.
She had a unique style.
Oh my,
yes.
And and her style is the storytelling style. I mean, another wonderful vocal expressionist is Carmen McRae. Not the same sort of finesse in this, but the more gritty, here it is, and we're dealing with it sort of style. So these were the people I listened to when I was younger. But as I said, in order to get a gig, I had to sing the top 40, and I was dancing more than I was singing at that time. I was a dancer. I'd taken ballet for, I don't know, from the time I was 3 until I was 16.
Wow.
And I had graduated to toe, and then someone from school at the time said they were opening a dance academy, and I went to Afro-Cuban dancing, which was not a very popular thing for my mom, but that was what had gotten me started in the business. So I got a lot of gigs doing Afro-Cuban dance troupe music and dancing, and we'd come to Canada, and we needed time to extend our performance. And I had a doo-wop group in the States in school with the same young woman who had suggested she was going to start a dance academy. And we were doing a lot of Apollo and amateur hour, and we weren't winning anything, but we were out there. And anytime someone needed a group, we were called. So all my music at that time was top 40, but I was still listening to Sarah and Lena Horne and people like that, because that music played in our home. Like most singers, you sort of, initiate that from the home. So when I came to Montreal, I was still doing top 40, playing drums, saxophone, dancing. And when I met Richard, who said, settle down and have a listen. Let's do something with all that movement, and it reanimated the fact that I love that type of music. I just didn't know what I was doing at the time. I just was, imitating what I'd heard. And the more I hung with the jazzers like Charlie and, and Skip Bay and all those, the more I hung with them, the more it became, clear. And I was able to sort of bring my variations because, jazz especially is very personal. You don't have to imitate anybody. You just have to be you and give what you feel is, the route to take.
Quick question here. I remember speaking to a music writer in Toronto, Norman Otis Richmond. You might know of him.
Yes.
And he tells me that Carmen McRae has some Jamaican roots, as do you. Is that true?
Yeah, I have Jamaican roots, yes, for sure. I didn't know that about Carmen, but of course.
Duh.
I can hear it. When I hear her speak, of course, yes.
Was Montreal kind to you as a woman performer and a woman that, you migrated here, and then we have this French context?
Ultimately, I was adopted immediately. I don't know if it was entirely the fact that, I knew so many people in the culture of jazz and of course, all of the names that I've previously mentioned.
Charlie would have taken care of you because he don't play.
Under his wing. Under his wing. When I think of him daily, and he was like the real godfather of everybody here, and it didn't take anything for you to go to him and him to sort of straighten out a problem.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I hear that Charlie doesn't get enough credit for starting a jazz festival here.
I know, and it's a delicate topic. I want to lean on the side of yes, that is very true from the people who knew him know him and remember. I mean, he would put things together, and it didn't have maybe the type of recognition that the international jazz festivals have today, because he was really just getting people around the city and the province to gigs, and putting us all together and making it happen. And that's what the people wanted at that time, because they hadn't had anything of that nature. There was Dudu Marcel, who
that's right.
But he was bringing in a lot of American acts, and fine, that was wonderful, because how else could we have heard that, But I think Charlie really sort of finessed the idea of using a lot of local talent, and local means we all migrated here from somewhere, but we made it our home, and we just wanted to continue the process of playing together, and establishing a new route, So I feel that would be what we would credit Charlie with, because he was a shaker and a mover.
And now you teach.
Yes, well, I started the vocal jazz problem. That's
Back to school you go.
That's a Freudian slip if I've ever heard. A program at McGill, not because I was such an initiative type of person, but Ewan Edwards, who was a choir conductor, because there was no such thing as a voice performance or credits at the time when I was in the early 80s, and it was all instrument and really all bebop, right? And very much still the case in some cases, but Ewan I don't remember the exact story, but someone may have gone to Ewan Edwards and said, want to take some voice lessons because we want to put a group together. I kind of remember that. And Ewan, for some reason, contacted me and said, would I come in and, once a week and just go through the process of singing, and because I had a pretty good ear. Jazz was quite limited to me at that time too, but I had been delving into it. So I did. I worked, they taught me, I taught them. I went away to do Lady Day in Toronto for a little over a year, and when I came back, my position was still waiting for me, and more people were starting to, register to work with me there. A lot of the instructors and people who were working in voice teaching were my students. I feel like the grandmother of all of this, But so I wear the mantle of creating that process, thanks to the insight of Ewan Edwards, and I've been there for close to 40 years.
And how appropriate. Now, you've been called the Montreal's Queen of Jazz. You've won a Juno Award. You've been voted 2-time top Canadian female jazz vocalist by Jazz Report. And you were honored with the International Association of Jazz Educators Awards. I'm sure that's just, a small sampling. But what are you most proud of in terms of these various awards that you've been given?
Everything. Everything is a step towards what I would like to think is my dedication and my heart in the music. I get a funny feeling of being called any sort of, some big regal type word, because I'm a worker. I enjoy what it is I do, but it does not come easy from the preparation or just getting work and doing, and traveling and being, and especially as I'm getting older, it's, it demands a little something on you in for many humanistic ways. But, given the Order of Canada was like, I'd prayed that I could have shared that with my mom, because she was strategic in my life about getting to where I needed to get to. And that was, the optimum of awards or gifts for my processing music and teaching. But there isn't one award that I feel that outweighs another, other than the Order of Canada, so to speak. But because they all applaud me. I call them my, like when you get a card of achievement or your card at school to say you have an A+ or an A- or a B or a C. I feel that's my credit in the stick-to-itiveness of what I have to do. But more recently, I received the Oscar Peterson Award, which is, that is, right now the top of the totem, because that award is usually reserved for instrumentalists, and the Ella Fitzgerald Award is for vocalists. And I received that I think 2 or 3 years ago from the International Jazz Festival, Montreal International Jazz Festival. So that was like, and Richard missed that because I'm sure he was tap dancing up in heaven.
My big sister, I thank you so much. Anytime that I get with you and you know anything that I'm doing, so I'm sure sometime to your consternation, I drag you into it, and you're so gracious, but then you do so wonderful, and you know how we do.
Well, thank you for, including me in you're the hardest working woman in show business.
Okay.
and we say that's Pat being Pat, right?
Yes.
Ranee, I love you dearly.
I love you. And it's wonderful to meet you. And
they're coming back, and I think I'm going to have to throw a dinner party, because that's the one thing that was missing in these 4 days.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Where we could have done the social.
It's not.
Nice.
It's not going to be the last time. Certainly a first time. And there's so much great Black music history in Montreal. You can't do it in one sitting or one dinner party, but we'll try for next time.
Well, yeah, we'll kick the can, right?
Absolutely.
All righty. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, and thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.